And welcome back to Horns Up, the podcast, where we're celebrating a world championship for the Los Angeles Rams as they defeated the Cincinnati Bengals 23-20 in Super Bowl 56. I'm going to go here to my friend Bryan, buddy. It's been a long time waiting here for LA Ram fans, especially us old school guys. I've been saying we needed a title in this town. What a game it was. I think it was a little bit closer than a lot of us anticipated. But at the end of the day, we got the victory. Our Rams are Super Bowl champs, my friend.
Oh, so excited, Frank. So excited. Horns up, baby. Horns up. Yeah, I mean, we waited forever. I mean, it seems that way. If you're a Rams fan, you've lived in LA, moved away. Oh, to have them come back and win a ship already, I mean, within just only a few years, getting the new stadium back in LA, championship, Super Bowl. Let's go. We heard that plenty. Let's go all over the place during the parade. So
all right, Shane. I know you were texting me, man. I think you were you had your defibrillator off to the side, didn't you?
I was saying I was making an appointment down at the walk-in clinic just in case I needed to walk in here. But it's 2 weeks to prepare for the Super Bowl. You're listening to a lot of shows. You start hearing the same thing over and over again. You start hearing from a lot of people that have never watched the Rams. They've got their prognostications. They have their ideas about it. You and I talked every day, several times a day before the game. One of my views was underestimating the Bengals front line, what they could do to us if we could break through that it would change the game, because we know that the Rams needed to run. But what an interesting thing is preparing for watching the game. I know we're going to talk about the game tonight, but for a week I prepared. I had a bunch of people over, close family and friends, watching this game. I bought ribs. I barbecued ribs. I made a bunch of different hors d'oeuvres. I loaded up the place. I bought all the booze. I wanted everybody to have a good time. I didn't eat any of it. I drank a lot of it. That was my day right there. I was nervous. I was anxious. The game did not turn out like I thought that it would. And everybody had a great time. That was great. I suffered through that thing. And when Stafford does what he does, marches our team down the field and scores, and then Aaron Donald comes out and leads that defensive score, I tell you, I just wanted to cry. It was huge. Now, maybe it's because I hadn't eaten in 4 hours and I was full of booze, but it was a huge win to me. It was something that I'll remember for the rest of my life, really.
Yeah, I felt the intensity. I felt my heart pounding throughout the game. And I remember when they scored the first touchdown, when he threw the fade pass in the corner to Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah.
And he scored that touchdown. I jumped so hard. I mean, I can't jump anymore because of my disability. But my point is, I just got up and fist pumped because I remember that last Super Bowl, Super Bowl 53, where we never got in the end zone. I felt when we scored that first touchdown, we had this weight lifted off our back that we actually got in the end zone in this Super Bowl, unlike Super Bowl 53. And so that's when I got into it. And Bryan, then the Rams get the ball again. They march down the field. Stafford hits Cooper Kupp in the back of the end zone in the corner. All of a sudden now we're up 13-3. We missed the extra point.
Wow.
And I'm feeling, as I'm watching that game, this game's not even going to be close. Because you can see the Bengals aren't moving the ball against the Rams defense. The Rams are starting to get cooking on offense. And then comes the injury to OBJ. And I felt the wind come out of that team. I felt it. I'm sure you guys felt it too. But did you get the sense that game was about to get out of control and it was going to be a Rams blowout before that moment?
At that point, the Rams were looking unstoppable, at least in the passing game. I mean, part of that was just the Bengals loading the box. I mean, every first down, it seemed like 8 to 9 guys were attacking the running game. They were going to get us in second and longs. And OBJ was on fire. I mean, every time he turned around, he basically looked like he was wide open. I mean, he was on the verge of going for one of those 100 to maybe even 150-yard games. I mean, with the amount of receiving yards he had to start the game. They were doubling Cup. So it was him. They basically said, okay, OBJ beat us, and he was doing it. And he was making it look easy. So when he went down, yeah, I think if you were a Rams fan watching that game, all of us were just like, oh no. Oh, that didn't just happen.
Yeah.
You've got to be kidding me. And so, yeah, and that, again, that followed up. And, we always talk about like changing momentum in a game. You miss extra points and field goals, and I always say that can instantly cause your brain or your momentum just to like exhale a little bit. And I think that happened. That missed extra point is one of those things in your mind. You go, you got to be kidding. Did that really just happen? And then the OBJ injury follows, and now you're really like, oh, what is going on here? So yeah, I thought we had game in complete control, and then what? Oh, you got to be kidding me! And from that point on, yeah, we looked like we were in a daze for about a quarter and a half. It seemed like.
Yeah. Shane, what did you think? You saw it, obviously. What was running through your mind when you saw OBJ? Because I think we all knew it. It was the ACL. The way it came down, the way that the knee buckled backwards. We all kind of sensed it there. What were you thinking?
Good Lord, if you're a Rams fan, non-contact injuries this year.
Yeah.
See that happen in real time. There, it breaks your heart. OBJ, media wants to bring a lot of baggage with him. They keep just tacking things onto his code as he goes. He was great. From what I read, from what I heard, he was a gamer. He was focused. He comes into an organization that's focused. You and I have heard Von Miller interviews talking about coming to a team where, when he was in Denver, they would lose and it was like double down, double down, double down. We're coming in. We're coming in on Monday. Monday's your day off. No, it's not your day off. We're coming in. We're doubling down. Rams very different. Rams drafting, bringing professionals in, and they're saying, we know you're a professional. We know you want to win. Take your day off, come in, focus with that. OBJ comes in, and I think he was a huge addition to that. And it broke my heart to see him go down with that. And then it started the McVay questions. Well, can he do it? What's he going to revert to passing? What's he going to do? You and I, all three of us actually have been texting during games, and we've seen sometimes what happens and the kind of tunnel vision that can happen when you get into this situation. McVay talked about his last Super Bowl and his approach to that, and it was
it happened again. I think he did a lot of. He went heavy run right after OBJ, and the way that Cincinnati was loading the box, he really didn't move the ball that well.
Yeah,
and I thought part of it was, you're right, McVay kind of pulled back into McVay, the way he kind of gets a little safe, kind of sometimes over trust the defense, and he did. McVay definitely did exactly what you're saying. Just he got safe, and the OBJ injury, I think, kind of made him overthink.
But I think you lose OBJ, you come in the game without Higbee itself. Obviously, you've lost Robert Woods earlier in the year. You lost Tutu Atwell. I mean, you're down to Van Jefferson, whose wife is pregnant on the sidelines. You're down to, Bryson Hopkins, a guy that's never caught a pass in 2 years, only had one target, all of a sudden becomes your primary guy, and you got, the 7th round draft pick in Skoranek. I mean, can you blame him for thinking, okay, we're going to have to run our way to this title here? And it took him about a quarter and a half to figure it out. But that's what it looked like to me, Bryan, is that I think he felt he was out of options. And then you get to the last drive of the game, you got no choice but to throw it to what are the scrubs on the field.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, that's where they were at. I mean, even Blanton went down.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and he was the starting tight end for the game. I mean, we're literally out our two starters in Munt and Higbee. We're now on to Tyson is a 6th round pick, and Blanton's an undrafted free agent playing tight end. And then Blanton had a great game in the Niners where he stepped up. So to see a guy like Hopkins step up the way he did, where really clutch was most of his catches were on the last drive. I think he had 2 catches on the last drive.
Big, yeah.
So, I mean, talk
Huge.
about a player coming up clutch.
Huge.
But but he also, it was weird. He got spread out wide on one of those catches where it looked very eerily similar to how Gerald Everett was used a little bit, where we hadn't seen that from McVay for a while, where you were seeing that guy get spread out. I know he tried it with Jacob Harris, who's another tight end / receiver who went out for us.
Yeah.
So, so you look at all the injuries, the Rams have faced with the receiving core. And we kind of touched on it going into last year. Like, do we really need Tutu or all these guys? And now we're looking at these guys stepping up, and you're like, well, I guess we did this year. How crazy is it?
Yeah, well, see, that's the thing, Shane. I think when, every year when these teams win a title, whether it's the NBA or NFL, we see these sort of in-season videos we put together to highlight the seasons. I think you could really create a narrative for the Rams' final game, how these guys are dropping like flies and you essentially have nothing but a bunch of scrubs out there. And how's McVay going to pull this thing out? On one hand, we're like, okay, McVay's tunnel vision. But on the other hand, there's another narrative there where you can say, look what McVay had to work with and look what he pulled out of his rear end really to win a title for LA. You can look at it 2 different ways.
What a test.
Yeah.
Here. What a test. You could almost argue that if he had all of his starters and all of that he wanted, that he would gravitate toward his favorite, his groove. He would do that. He could not do that in this game. All of a sudden, he's got to throw to Hopkins.
Yeah.
First down. And the guy's catching with his hands. I love that. It tells me that they're paying attention to the details. They're drafting people. Catch with their hands. It's a small thing. You and I talked a lot about it. And, when you play the details, when you play the second, third, fourth string players in there, this is the professionals. We're at a level that everybody knows everybody. The Rams did something special in here. It wasn't, people like to say, well, they loaded up their team. They played with, but look at that team that won the Super Bowl. Weddle playing with a torn pec.
Yeah.
Please, Disney, I'm waiting for that movie. It's going to be great. I mean, this whole team here, and let me back up real quick and give you a few minutes. Bengals came out, they played a hell of a game. That was a battle. Way to go, Bengals. You'll get the TNT movie run through. You get to the finals. That's great. You're going to do it. The legendary Hall of Famer already, quarterback I forgot his name. What's his name again?
Kurt Warner?
No, the quarterback for the Bengals.
Joe Burrow. Sorry. Yeah.
What? Burrows. So I think the Rams really came out. They proved a lot of things. Next year is going to be wonderful. But this year, I just want to enjoy so many the charges thrown and dismissals about it. A lot of people getting to watch the Rams for the first time to find out that McVay can think on the run. Our quarterback Stafford, again, that man. Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
Running that drive, throwing where he needed to, and it was incredible. And so a lot to be proud of.
Yeah, there really is. And so we go into the half. The Bengals score on a halfback toss to the end zone, a very clever play. But I think it also highlighted too, down in the red zone, the struggles the Bengals were having, and they would have for the rest of this game. That's number one, that they had to, resort to trickery, I guess. But we go to the half 13-10, Bryan, and we come out. I'm a little deflated over the Odell Beckham Jr. injury. And the first play is a 75-yard touchdown with a non-offensive pass interference call, followed by an interception tipped off the hands of Skoranek. It all looked like it was unraveling at the first few seconds of the third quarter, did it not?
Oh, yeah. I know my head was down. I was like, is this really starting to happen? This is not happening. This can't be happening. I mean, even before the Stafford, I'm still pacing the room, upset about the non-call on Ramsey.
Yeah.
But I mean, with that, we went into last week, and I know in our podcast for the pregame, one of the things I know I emphasized that Cincinnati was going to try and do to us was run fade routes. Well, their two biggest plays that they hit on us was the one to Chase over Ramsey for the 46-yarder, and then he got a touchdown going down the sideline, just running your basic fade routes. That's what the Bengals do. And they play will we get lucky card? Well, they got lucky twice. Once in a big way for 75 yards and a TD. And that's a big momentum builder. And then, you get the interception from Skoranek, who looked like he slowed down a little bit on the route, which, again, just being a rookie, still learning the ropes. He's made a few mistakes like that during the season. I mean, this isn't his first time. So it happened again, unfortunately. Went off his hands, balls over the middle, tip balls over the middle. They wind up always being bad results.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Let me present another scenario, Shane. The Rams come out. They give up the touchdown. They throw the interception. They get behind 20-3. It seems like this team, especially led by Matthew Stafford, when it gets behind late in the second half, when it becomes crisis mode, Matthew Stafford seems to be at his best. In some ways, could you argue that maybe the Rams falling behind after losing OBJ was maybe the best thing that could have happened to them? I mean, you don't want to think it in that terms, but listen, Matthew Stafford has historic numbers in the fourth quarter in the playoffs this year. When the Rams are in crisis mode, that's when they seem to really turn up a notching.
It's incredible, but I'll admit the San Francisco game at the end of the season ruined me. Killed me. I came home. I had my hockey game earlier. I came home. I loaded up. I was feeling great. First half was great, and then the team just fell apart, and that was a killer. And it just goes to show you that your quarterback can't do everything.
Right.
Your team needs to get its act together. But he has a history. He's got a reputation, and it's throughout the league. They understand it. And so did that make me feel any better during the Super Bowl when I started to see that beginning, as Bryan brought up, the beginning of that second half? No, it didn't. Because you're playing for everything here. And LA bringing a championship to LA. Okay, not St. Louis. No, it's a big deal for him. He came in and he embraced everything. And the focus that he has, and it's interesting, and I don't want to get too much off on a tangent, and I'd love to talk to Bryan about Jalen Ramsey and his performance.
Yes.
Super Bowl.
Yeah, we got to talk about that.
We got to talk about that a little bit. But I'll tell you what, when you talk about Aaron Rodgers getting the MVP and you talk about Stafford, and you talk about the difference between the two of them, Stafford having some of the most interceptions during the league, but he's just heaving the ball. And he did it during the Super Bowl. He nodded to Jefferson, go, 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 and he threw that ball up. He will do that. He's not worried about that. That's balls. Because you're not just, there's balls to put it up because the game's on the line or the game is in progress. You do that. They didn't worry about his reputation. He's throwing the ball up and he's saying to his receivers, come and get it. Come and get it. Come and battle for it. We're talking about now the season has ended. OBJ's ACL, who knows if he comes back. Robert Woods coming back. Man, you'd love to have those receivers. We talk about Megatron. We talk about, these things. These receivers that come back for the ball and fight for the ball. That guy thrives on that kind of aggression. And so you'd love to see that. And so did I know that the Rams are going to come back? No. Did I feel better knowing that Stafford was the man with the ball running down the field at the end of the fourth quarter? Absolutely. Worth every penny. And that guy will never pay for a meal again.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And see, Bryan, Shane brings up an interesting point. The MVP of the league, I believe, had 38 touchdowns and only 2 interceptions. Boy, that's a great TD to interception ratio. But the guy that threw interceptions all year wound up winning the Super Bowl.
Well, yeah, again, it goes down to team support. I mean, you got to have the defense to back him up. But again, just like Shane had said, he threw a few of those are just throw ups. That was a 3rd and 14. Maybe there was another guy open short. We kick a field goal, or maybe we go for it on 4th down. But he's done that his whole career, from having Megatron to even the last receiver, the big receiver he had. Why am I trying to play Holiday? In Detroit, where the guy's a big receiver, he just throw it up to him. And I don't think our receivers yet are used to that, because I know Van Jeffer's been in a couple of them, to where it's the understanding, like, look, I'm going to give you a shot, come back and get the ball.
Yeah.
So, which I'm okay with. If you're a gunslinger, I mean, Brett Favre made a living off of those kind of throws. I'm just going to throw it there, and I'm going to give you a shot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the way you are. It's like, I trust you enough to at least not get it intercepted. Well, we had a few intercepted. But, as time goes on with these guys playing with Stafford, I think they'll get to the understanding that, yes, I'm going to give you a shot. Don't make me look bad.
Yeah.
At least knock it down. Okay. But if you can pull them down, a few of them, no, man, even better for us. Because that's just the way he plays.
And I think that's the point you're making, Shane. You look at, again, Aaron Rodgers, listen, great touchdown to interception ratio, but the guy's sitting at home, watching at home. And quite frankly, like a lot of commentators have rightfully pointed out, he's underperformed in the playoffs. And a lot of people say because he's played it safe. Here's Stafford 1 year with the Rams. He's slinging it. Makes a few passes that are bad. I'm wondering if there was some kind of an injury he had, because a lot of those passes were short this year, and a lot of those interceptions. But at the end of the day, you get the good with the bad with Stafford. It's just that we get a lot more good. And when the 4th quarter comes around, he becomes the best in the game. And that's when you want a quarterback to be at his best, is in the 4th quarter. This is why the Rams are world champions and why the Packers are at home trying to decide whether they're going to rebuild or not, Shane.
What are you going to do about that? So Jalen Ramsey.
Mm-hmm.
Before the Super Bowl, we're talking about what are you going to do with Jalen Ramsey, and we all talked about you put him on their top guy, lock him down, make him throw somewhere else. The Rams, as far as I can tell, and you guys watch things much closer than I do, but how they ended up using Jalen was essentially putting him wherever they thought the ball was going to go. And so he was involved in a lot of the plays. Does it matter he gave up 160 yards? Okay, give or take, we got a face mask run over there. That's a big chunk of those yards. But, Bryan, give me a brutally honest opinion about Jalen Ramsey's performance for the Super Bowl.
Jalen Ramsey gave up what he's been giving up the last few years. He tends to give up deep balls. He'll bite on some double moves. He plays very aggressive on your stops and your out routes, and that's where he's gotten some big plays. But he if you want to attack Ramsey, if you watch the game films, you want to attack Ramsey, he tends to give up deep balls. You can get behind him. Now sometimes the ball's been underthrown. I know one against DK in Seattle this last year was underthrown, and he comes back and he knocks the ball away. But that's been Ramsey's Achilles heel since he's been a Ram. And I don't know if teams are just now starting to really pay attention to it, but he's just, they're just hitting him at the right time. Sometimes that's what it is. Sometimes it's just the play call is the right play call at the right time. But I think Frank, you sent us something on Warren Sapp where he mentioned, the back end plays with the front end. So if your front end is dominant and you're attacking and you're always hitting the quarterback, you expect that ball to come out within 3 seconds, which means the ball's not going to go deep very often. Except for just the straight 3-step fade. And that's kind of where they got us this time. And Ramsey was with step for step with Higgins before he pulls the face mask. It looked like Chase got behind him, but
what did you think of the last drive that the Bengals had, where he tried to jump the pass in front of Jamar Chase and he missed? And on that drive, he gave up 18, 20 yards. to almost put them in field goal range. I thought that was a heck of a gamble on his part that really hurt. I remember just like, you son of a, what are you doing here? You know?
It was an in-cut route, but the ball was thrown more towards the back shoulder.
Yeah.
So a little unfortunate, except for if you're offense, because then you have to stop your feet on the route to make the catch. Well, the DB's playing to where you're supposed to be going on the in cut. So, I mean, you see plays like that on slant routes sometimes where a guy will stop as he's catching the slant and then cut back towards the sideline, and the DB's overplaying it because he's driving the slant to make the tackle. That's kind of what that route kind of reminded me of on the in cut. Little, I mean, I can't say Ramsey completely misplayed it. Little unlucky and lucky for Cincinnati, I think, on ball placement, which again stops the receiver's feet. But you got to make that tackle. I mean, my first thought was I went right back to the Niner game that they came back week 18, where I mean Jalen jumps the out route by Kittle, lets Debo get behind him, and now Debo's got a 30, 40-yard play when they need to score on the drive, and instead of keeping everything in front, you're allowing someone to get behind you. So I wouldn't say Ramsey played his best game by far. And we've seen Ramsey play a hell of a lot better.
Well,
it happens. It happens. Sometimes you gotta look at the other team and go, damn, that kid Chase is pretty damn good. Higgins is a really good receiver. These guys have legit skill. Sometimes they just make a play, and they did this week.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you just got to give it up to guys.
Yeah. Well, did you guys see in that last play where Donald essentially ended the game? People are showing the up top view where Ramsey fell on the play. If Burrow had another half second, he's got Chase running down the sidelines for the game-winning touchdown. He slipped on that play, and it adds up to me. Listen, I get the whole thing where he's trying to make a play, trying to jump a play, as much as it makes me angry. I get sometimes you get beat, like on that first big pass down the sidelines in the first quarter where Chase kind of reached out and they got the field goal. I get that. You get beat. That happens. But when you're jumping passes in critical moments and you're missing and you're whiffing for 20-yard losses and you're essentially putting them in field goal range, and then you're slipping and falling in a moment where the game is on the line, I have problems with that. That's very troubling. And I'm not suggesting we need to get rid of Jalen Ramsey. I'm just wondering if the kid is just too much trying to make too big of a play, just to try and end it. But there seemed to be a number of blunders there from what I saw. But, maybe.
Can I challenge that a little bit?
Yeah, tell me. Yeah.
If your system and your approach is we're going to get to quarterback, he can only get what he can get. We watched every game. We recognize that they're a big play team, but in this situation, they need to get down the field. Jalen Ramsey is assuming and expecting that front line is just going to crush him.
This is good point.
And that's exactly what happened.
Well,
That's second half.
First 4th and 1 where we scored, like we got the ball and scored, they went for it at the 50. Shockingly, I still understand what he was thinking.
Yeah.
Well, even though Ernest Jones tipped it, Ramsey jumped the route and would have knocked the ball away. So it would have worked there, So it's one of those things you've got some give and take. Ramsey was all over Chase on that route. Jones made a great play. I mean, we can talk about unsung heroes, and Jones wound up coming off an injury and threw it all over the field. I mean,
that guy all year long when he was playing, he came out of nowhere. That guy.
When we talk about routes, right there. I mean, you take the good with the bad sometimes. And when a guy's aggressive and he's playing, that would have been a good. That would have been a huge play by Ramsey if Jones doesn't. We're not talking about Jones knocking down. Ramsey was on it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But again, how scary is that when you see a picture of Jamar Chase on that 4th down and you're like, that would have been the ball game. We would have lost. That's scary.
If you're right, and in that situation, if you're Burrows and you're knowing that Jalen's going to kind of play the short, and so if you could just get it a half a second, and so he's holding onto that ball just a little bit because he's waiting for that little bit of a move and a break, that half second killed him.
Yeah.
It did.
Here, he wasn't going to throw that ball. He needed to have a half a second in order to break Jalen Ramsey and get that ball out. He could not do it. He did not get it. And so 2020's hindsight on that. But Raheem Morris ends up having a defense. And listen, I'll admit, most of the season, I want to slap that guy.
You hate that soft zone, don't you?
Bullshit. Just letting teams just make their way down the field, tightening up in the red zone. You know, it's a tough game to watch. It ain't fun. It's like watching the New Jersey Devils play the neutral trap in hockey for years. It's tough. You got to give credit to Raheem Morris. That defense came out. You got to give credit. And I'm giving credit to him, though I think he cost me probably 6 months of my life here through this. Raheem Morris.
Well, that defense was on fire in the playoffs. I mean, they just weren't giving up nothing.
Yeah.
I just think the Tampa Bay game was just a strange anomaly of fumbles that most likely because of temperature and humidity in Tampa Bay, right? That's what I'm kind of assuming there. This defense, I mean, it winds up giving up, I think, 18, 19 points per game in the playoffs. But if you remove that anomaly, which were those fumbles, I think they probably would have only gave up 13 to 14, which that's just amazing. The defense was on fire. And I think the Bengals offense was overwhelmed, and we saw that. You know, Bryan, that Warren Sapp interview on the Rich Eisen show that I sent you today, Warren Sapp brought up an interesting point. There was a point in that game, I believe it was in the fourth quarter, Burrow's kind of running to the sidelines, and you saw Aaron Donald give him one big shove. And in that process, the Cincinnati Bengals player kind of ran up to Donald and started kind of poking and kind of shoving and things like that out of anger to protect their quarterback. And Warren Sapp's thing was, listen, what he did was legal. The only thing you just did now is you took the biggest monster in the NFL and you just pissed him off by poking at him and shoving him and confronting him. Why would you want to wake this guy up? And quite frankly, after that moment in that game is when Donald woke up and started to dominate.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we've seen Donald lately. I mean, I'm not saying that he saves himself, but he tends to turn it on in the fourth. And I mean, why wouldn't you? I mean, we need him then. I mean, he's kind of been our finisher. But yeah, why poke the bear? I mean, that's to me, of all the guys you're going to pick a fight with, and it's not even that he wasn't a legal hit. Like we all saw, it was in bounds. I get it. Step up for your guy. He's your quarterback.
Yeah.
But not Aaron Donald. I mean, if it's great gains, fine. Pick all kinds of fights, but not Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
To me, after that point, you know, I think it was a stat I heard was something of Rams had 6 sacks in the last 21 or 22 drop back passes. I mean, basically 1 out of every 3rd pass play was a sack to finish that game.
Yeah.
That's an insane stat. I mean, that just tells you that the D-line, Von Miller and the group, and Aaron Donald, at that point, we're kicking your butt. I mean, even Ernest Jones ran over Mixon on a play, you know, and got a sack.
Oh, I love that.
That's a rookie running linebacker on a so-called Pro Bowl running back.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the defense just really, at that point, they were playing lights out through the second half. After that, you could say after that Aaron Donald sack, that stopped him and held him to a field goal after the interception. It seemed like the defense was just lights out.
Frank, can I say real quick? One of the most enjoyable things about Aaron Donald, he's done it every game of the playoffs. Remember San Francisco? There was that there was that big gathering. I don't know what quarter it was, but it was a slap in the face, and Donald got into it. And there was a bunch of shoving, there was a bunch of grabbing. He did it during the Bucks game, a bunch of stuff going, and you know, Donald's poking. He just like, yeah, do something. Oh, you just slap me? Oh, bitch. You're okay. Now we're serious. And he's looking for that, which is why you can't lose him. He's got to be there. He's a Ram. He's a true blood Ram. He is the young blood. He is the essence of that. And so this kind of talk that I was surprised by on the Super Bowl Sunday, he's going to retire. I'd never heard that. Nobody ever said that to me. all of a sudden we're talking about, and I'm thinking, okay, and Frank says to me, well, it's just kind of a locker room. Don't say that. Don't say that.
It's no pay leverage. I know we're going to get into a later podcast and talk about offensive defense players and contracts. His contract has got no more guaranteed money. He's leveraging, NFL guys, especially his level, they're not playing without having guaranteed money.
Yeah.
Right now, his contracts are all non-guaranteed. So if he was
Wow.
get hurt next year, he would lose a lot of money. So yeah, that's all this is. He's coming.
Well, if I need to go on strike for Aaron Donald, then I will. I'll do it.
I think we all would as Ram fans.
Yeah. He's a true blood, that guy.
Well, okay. As we wrap up this cast here, we're 35 minutes in. I guess, guys, this has been a long time coming for not only the city of Los Angeles, but for us old school guys that have followed the team from way back in the days. I think the next cast, there's a lot to cover here. Particularly, again, lots of questions about the Ram fan base, right? And things of that nature. I think we can have a discussion too later on about the MVP of the Super Bowl. Lots of discussion who actually deserved it. We'll do that on another cast. But I think I just want to, for me, I'll say this much. I started watching the Rams. My first game I ever watched was January 1980, Super Bowl 14, Rams and Steelers. And it's been since then that I fell in love with the organization. I fell in love with the horns, the gold, and the blue uniforms. And for my part, when they went from LA down to Anaheim, I kept watching them. Granted, the city of Los Angeles had to divorce in some capacities culturally, especially when the Raiders moved in. But for me, going through sort of, living in LA with the Raiders really dominating the culture in LA, I believe the Raiders became LA's team when they moved here and won the Super Bowl. For us Ram fans that remained loyal, this has been a long time coming to the Super Bowl. I was hoping to have this celebration 3 years ago when we played in Super Bowl 53. And unfortunately, that didn't go our way. But I guess my question to you gentlemen, is when when Stafford took that last knee and you saw those last few seconds tick away and the Rams and the confetti were falling and the Rams were celebrating, obviously that rush of emotion, that tense sort of feeling we have for 3 hours, you got a chance to exhale, obviously. But what did that moment mean to you, gentlemen? Bryan, I'll go to you first.
It means so much. I mean, it's just like you find joy in it. I mean, we all know, like, once you start watching this game and truly get into games, and this playoffs was, insane with how the games went down to the end. And if you love sports, I love sports, and I'm a huge football guy. Sports is the only true form of entertainment nowadays where you truly don't know the endings. You don't know the storylines, the good guy, the bad guy, who's going to win. So, yeah, for all these years where you're just down in the dumps because the storyline for the Rams has been bad. And now we're at the top of our game and we're enjoying being the hero of the story, per se, if you're a Rams fan. To just jubilation and happiness, it's like finding treasure at the bottom of the ocean, and you're pulling the Super Bowl out of a treasure chest kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just, you can't really explain the happiness until you have it, but at the same time, yeah, your heart's beating, then you exhale, but then you're still, you want to cry, you don't want to cry because I'm not crying, I'm a dude, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, it's just awesome to be a part of. I mean, we all love being part of a winner, and right now it's our turn. We this year. So, I mean, winning proves everything. Means you are the best this year, and we'll see what happens in the future. But yeah, man, I exhaled, but at the same time, man, I was in Vegas and I partied hard. So you could say I didn't just exhale, I inhaled quite a bit.
Good.
All right, Shane, bud. Your thoughts.
I got a few thoughts on this. Listen, it is so difficult to win in the NFL. I'm a hockey fan. I follow the Kings. I followed hockey forever. About 10 years ago, Frank asked me. Frank runs a 32-team, $100 million cap fantasy league. It's hard. It's about as close to the real thing as he can get it. It's difficult. He asked me to join it and wanted me to take a team. I said, I will, Frank, I don't follow football real closely. What that taught me in that league is how very difficult it is to field a team, quality team, a team that's going to survive. And then I end up realizing the cruel season that is the NFL season, where good people are destroyed and injured, and it's just a constant turnover of people, and coaching matters and GMs matter, and it's an incredible journey from beginning to end. And often you get to, and you have a great team, and you go into the season and you're loaded, and you just break apart during the season, and you just stumble, and then some team gets hot. The Bengals get hot, and they run through the playoffs, and they get to and you know what? Outstanding. I remember being with Frank during the Rams-Patriots Super Bowl.
The
Broke
first
our
one.
hearts.
The first one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Super Bowl 36. Yeah.
Difficult. It was difficult. That was not what we expected. It was incredible with that. And so following football in a very different kind of a view from far above, and seeing what it takes to field a team, drive a team, pick players off the waiver wire. I see Weddle coming off out of his driveway, coaching a high school team, ends up in the Super. That's legacy. That's 32 team football fantasy. You're just pulling people. You're doing everything you can to make it and groove and go. And it's a huge accomplishment for what the Rams did. And all this talk about them gathering a bunch of star players, bullshit. They thought their way through. They planned their way through. When the plans went all wrong, they just grabbed people's throats and drove them into the ground. And that's football. And that's why I love football and I hate football. It's going to cost me days, years, lives, whatever it is. It is an incredible sport to watch, regardless of how much the NFL tries to fuck the sport up.
Yeah.
Okay? I keep coming back to that. But what's interesting and kind of end with this. I'm following the Rams through the playoffs. I know every player. I know them three. I know the third, fourth string tight end. I know everything because of Frank and because of the fantasy league we're in. It matters. And I'm following it, and the teams are falling off, and Blanton comes in and does outstanding. You're like, yeah, well, okay, who's got him? And I'm going through and I'm trying to find out who's got Blanton. And as they're playing, and I remember that San Francisco game, turning it around, I got a neighbor here. She's probably 75 years old, screaming. I hear her yelling through the thing because that San Francisco game was so hard on me. I went into the kitchen and just started scrubbing dishes because I was so nervous. And she's yelling, and I turn back around and I see Cooper Kupp flying through the middle of the field with the ball. There are Rams fans all around me.
Yeah.
I find out now because I'm yelling, they're yelling. I go out into the back door and they're like, "Did you see that?" I saw that. I didn't know you're a Rams fan. Well, yeah, I'm a Rams fan. It was a miracle. It was meant to be. It was everything that we expected it to be. And the Rams are Super Bowl champions right now. And I couldn't be prouder of that. And I don't care about all this talk about the parade and people didn't show up and what a small crowd, but it means nothing to me.
No.
And maybe that's because I'm a Kings fan and I've always had to struggle with that. But I'll tell you what, Frank, Bryan, you and me, we're something special because we know. We know.
Oh, yeah, we know. I mean,
That's right. And it doesn't matter if there's 1 million of us or 1,000 of us.
Yep.
the base is building. It's building. It's here. I'm on the street. I walked over to 7-Eleven yesterday. Got my Rams hat on, Rams sweatshirt. Guy in a work truck turned in the corner in front of me, sees me in my gear, and he yells out the window, "Whose house?"
I know.
Rams house. But that's what you're seeing. Guys are saying it because every day I'm dressed in my Ram gear right now. So I do it all the time. Guys are just yelling and and back to the how hard it is with these guys. I do want to as a guy that's like you guys, a GM guy. I just want to. I can't believe how guys stepped up for us, from Ashawn Robinson to Greg Gaines, Ernest Jones, Nick Scott. We lose Fuller and Scott steps in. Guys like, I mean, even though they can't say they had great games or whatever, but they're on the field making plays here and there, from David Long to Blanton to Bryson Hopkins. How many times do we have to change over to Shelton at center? Bobby Evans at guard. Alaric Jackson, a free agent guy, at left tackle, had to fill in for a little while, played really well. It's crazy how deep that you start going back as a Ram fan, and you're like, man, all these guys played such major roles in how this season wound up, in the story of this season and how we got here. And they don't get talked about. They don't get talked about enough. I mean, it's just crazy how this Lesney, the front office, how they've found guys that have that for this team fit and just made plays when we needed them. So thank you guys. Thank you to the guys that don't get the pub. You're not the Cooper Cups and stuff. All the back end guys. Those are the guys that you look for, and those are the ones that win games for you in the end.
Well, guys, it's interesting. I studied history over at Cal State San Marcos when I lived in California. I'm in Utah now, so I consider myself a historian of European and American history. But I'm also a historian of LA Rams football, particularly when I lived in Los Angeles. And it's something with this podcast I want to try and capture to make people understand what happened in the 70s and 80s to sort of, this idea that the Ram fan base is kind of weak and small right now, which it is in some respects. And I think we're going to touch on Rams culture. And I'm going to make sure that the younger generation understands the problems that this fan base has always had here in Los Angeles. But the key has always been, as I've said in this show a few times now, there is no other organization in the NFL that needed a world title more than the Los Angeles Rams. Listen, you could tell me that the Browns have no Super Bowl titles or the Bengals have no Super Bowl titles. Let me tell you something. With those fan bases, it doesn't matter. There's nothing else there. They're going to sell out those stadiums, whether they're good or bad. LA, totally different culture. And because the Rams have not only one of the smallest fan bases in the NFL, but because they're rebuilding a new fan base, almost like an expansion team in many respects, this title was necessary. And what we're going to see going forward is new generations of younglings coming up liking the Rams, especially with the style and the aggressive nature of the front office, which is very Hollywood, very Los Angelino, whatever you want to call it, kind of like Jerry Buss in the Showtime days, right? But this is why I say, for those of us out in LA that stuck with the Rams all through the 70s and the 80s, never quite winning it all, watching the Raiders come in, win the Super Bowl, and steal the heart of the city, for all those old guys like me, all right, this is for us. I know the players did it on the field, but there's many of us that have been through lots of downs with this organization, all those guys that remained loyalty. And let me tell you, loyalty, especially to sports, is a lost virtue, especially in Los Angeles. We know that, as LA fans can be fickle. So this one is out to all the OG Ram fans that stuck through the thick and through the thin, losing the team first to Anaheim culturally and then to St. Louis for 22 more years. You got what we've always wanted. This is a dream come true for most of us. I want to thank you, Bryan, for joining me. I want to thank you, Shane, for joining me today. We'll be back soon. This is Frank signing off for Horns Up. Your Los Angeles Rams are world champions. Super Bowl 56 world champions. Get your hats, get your t-shirts, get your banners, celebrate it, and hold your head up high, because right now it looks like the Los Angeles Rams organization is the premier organization in the NFL. Be proud, Ram fans. This is Frank signing off for Horns Up. Good night, everybody.
Horns up. Horns up.